Hello, YouTube. Moving on to other issues, I want to discuss the fact that a 6-year-old was molested by the Transportation Security Administration here in the United States. Now, this is, of course, under their so-called pat-down procedures, and yeah, they groped, molested a 6-year-old as part of their pat-down procedures. For those of you that are unaware, about a year ago, the United States began implementing body scanners, which take an image of your naked body. And about 6 months ago, they began implementing pat-down procedures, so-called, which which passengers boarding airplanes are randomly subjected to, as well as being subjected to them if they refuse to be radiated by the body scanners. Now, the TSA originally claimed that, as horrific as they are, they were fortunately not engaging in these policies for children as young as 6. They were not engaging in these molestation procedures for children as young as 6. I believe they actually said 8 years old was the cutoff, and they would be a little more humane for people 8 years old and younger. Unfortunately, this is not the case, as this is only one of several instances that have come to light. You can imagine how many have occurred if these are the ones that have come to light. The ones that have come to light being the ones that have been videoed by the parents of the child or by an observer. But there's a recent video that shows the 6-year-old being molested by the government and then breaking down in tears. I didn't watch the video, honestly, because I know that the government is comprised at the upper echelons and sometimes at the lower echelons, such as these TSA thugs. Of course, they didn't implement the policy, but they're the ones carrying it out. It is comprised of sadists, absolute scum, absolute tyrannical, horrific, sick individuals, so there was no need for me to watch the video. Like, it's like I don't watch videos of police brutality anymore, of the police beating the hell out of individuals, because why sicken myself further, right? I know what they do. They beat the hell out of innocent black people, they molest 6-year-olds, there's no need to watch it. It's, I know what the situation is now. The government at the upper echelons and often at the lower echelons consists of some of the most horrific, sadistic scum that you're ever likely to come across. And it's legalized, it's institutionalized, we're being conditioned to be slaves, and there's nothing we can do of it short of a mass uprising that fundamentally shakes the norms of this incredibly horrific society that we find ourselves subjected to, and that is increasingly resembling the society depicted in Orwell's 1984. But yeah, you can Google or search in YouTube Alex Jones's rant about the situation. I have my fundamental criticisms of Alex Jones, but you have to admire the fact that he routinely affirms his humanity, and in doing so affirms all of our humanity by continuing to be enraged at a visceral human level at these injustices, refusing to be conditioned to the point where he's never cavalier about these things that matter to all of us who value our humanity. Day after day, he lashes out with human rage and compassion for individuals who are having their rights and their dignity systematically taken from them. You'd think at a certain point he would just become despondent, but he continues to assert his humanity by raging against these tyrants. So, moving on. I want to discuss for a moment objective morality. Now, this ties the alleged existence of objective morality. Now, this ties into a video, I believe 2 videos ago, I did with regard to sanity, societal norms, how conspiracy theorists are pejoratively condemned when that should not be the case, how even people who are legitimately out of touch with reality should not be condemned because there's no objective reason to condemn them, they're just different. So this relates in a certain sense. I want to discuss the notion that there is objective morality. Now, there's not objective morality, insofar as objective morality means that something that can, insofar as objective means something that can be measured externally, scientifically, by universal consensus, I suppose you would say. If something could be defined as moral if there was a universal consensus. But, yeah, there's no such thing as objective morality. We derive our morality primarily from God and country. That is what the state tells us, the laws. A lot of individuals, for some bizarre reason, think that because it's written in a law book and because you can be arrested for it, that means that it is quote-unquote immoral. That means that you quote-unquote shouldn't do it. That means it's quote-unquote wrong. Now, never are these people able to explain precisely why. They can point to, well, if this was legal, it would have X, Y, and Z effect on society. Okay, fine, but there's nothing that objectively says that that effect on society is quote-unquote right or quote-unquote wrong. So, throughout history, there have been a wide range of what is considered acceptable, what is considered moral, what is legal, what is considered just, what is considered fair, etc., etc., etc. So the notion that at this point in time we can say, oh yeah, theft is inherently wrong, all thieves should be imprisoned, without any ability to consider that, perhaps the individual was highly impoverished, perhaps he had a severe mental condition, quote unquote, perhaps the corporation that he stole from is reaping profits off of the backs of impoverished Chinese laborers getting paid a few cents an hour and being exposed to toxins. There's no acknowledgement of the subjectivity there. There's often this blind adherence to the notion that the state has declared theft is wrong, or the Ten Commandments says theft is wrong, and thus theft is wrong. And this to me just seems completely absurd and without basis. People who base their morality on religion, okay, God said something is wrong, therefore it's wrong. I mean, it's absolutely asinine. Now, the closest we come to objective morality is when we discuss things like polluting, or rape or abuse, or etc. Things that objectively either prevent us from living, such as polluting the environment, clear-cutting forests en masse, destroying the planet's ability to sustain human life, and things that demonstrably negatively psychologically impact people. Now, I would argue this still doesn't fit the definition of quote-unquote objective, because there's no way to argue from a rational or other standpoint that destroying the life ground that sustains you, destroying the natural environment, is wrong. Why is it wrong? People will die as a consequence. People will suffer as a consequence. Is that right or is that wrong? Do people quote-unquote deserve to suffer, or do they not? I mean, these notions are very difficult to and I would argue impossible to argue. Now, the notion that objective morality does not exist, I do not think detracts at all from the fact that individuals should form strong opinions. It just means that we shouldn't take our morality from some objective external source. We should take our morality from what we naturally feel. And I suppose you could argue that I'm saying you should take your morality from X, Y, or Z location is saying that there's an objectively better way to take your morality, but I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, based on my subjective opinion, you should take your morality based upon what you feel because there's no objective external source for it. So, for instance, I am appalled by murder of innocent people. I am appalled by rape. I am appalled by environmental destruction. I am appalled by police stations and shopping malls. I am appalled by the occupation of Iraq, Afghanistan, and the invasion of Yemen and Pakistan, and the bombings in Pakistan, and now Libya. Excuse me, the invasion of Libya, the bombings in Yemen and Pakistan. There doesn't need to be some objective moral criteria for me to be, at a visceral, intuitive sense, enraged by this, and as a consequence, want to do everything in my power to stop them. Now, because there's no objective reason why destroying the environment is bad, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to become angry at individuals who simply cavalierly cut down trees in mass for profit, destroying entire ecosystems. Because again, I don't base my judgments of people, my formulation of opinions, on some doctrinaire objective morality. I base it on what intuitively feels healthy and right to me. And I suggest you do the same. Although I certainly will take issue with you if your subjective morals fundamentally conflict with mine. Okay, so that's all I have to say on that topic. I'm going to do a third video discussing a specific incident that occurred recently in my life that is indicative of the insanity of our modern culture, really a microcosm of the lengths to which we've devolved into this paranoid, base distrust and desire to control everything and everyone. So stay tuned for my next video. Thanks for listening.